Hi everybody. This video is specifically for anyone who is getting ready to put their very first MetaHuman into Unreal Engine for the first time. You might even be new to Unreal Engine because you're getting started with it since you're so excited about MetaHumans. And what's going to happen is that the process takes quite a long time. We're not yet to the point where there's simply a button inside Unreal Engine that brings your MetaHuman in. There are quite a large number of steps, and there are going to be a lot of messages kicked out by the different tools along the way. And so this video is really just to show the entire process out in the open, every single step, every single message, and help you get comfortable with that process before experiencing it yourself. So what we're going to do is assume that you've already got a new MetaHuman created. In this case, I've just got a slightly modified version of the Glenda template. We're also going to assume that you already have Unreal Engine and Quixel Bridge installed. Unreal Engine, of course, you'll need, and that's from the unrealengine.com website. This is, of course, where you'll be bringing your MetaHuman into. To download that, simply go to the website, unrealengine.com, click the download button. And if you're predominantly doing virtual production, Creator's license is the one you want. It's royalty free, and you can download that. The publishing license is if you plan to build executables and sell them, so that that would be what the publishing license is for. So that would be virtual reality applications, general applications, or video games, etc. That's what the publishing license is for. But anything that's virtual production where you're creating narratives and not actually distributing executable files, the Creator's license is the one you want. And then you can download and install. That installer, by the way, installs the Epic launcher. So I can just run this. I'm just hitting my Windows button down here, typing in Epic, and hitting Enter to launch the Epic's launcher. And this would then be able to launch Unreal Engine installs and such. So the very first time you've installed that, there won't be anything in the Unreal Engine versions area, and you can hit the plus button to add whatever versions you want. For the purposes of this demo, we're going to use version 4.27.0, and you can also install, there's the version for older versions and newer versions. There's a UE5 is not yet released, but you can get a preview version, etc. But the main use of this is launching the engine in any projects that you've already created. Another assumption for this tutorial is that you also already have Quixel Bridge installed. So you would go to quixel.com/bridge to get that application. You can download that for free. And of course, if you've already used the MetaHuman Creator, then you, by definition, have an Epic logon to use the MetaHuman Creator website. So in Bridge, you would use that same Epic account to sign on here to browse Megascans, and once you download Bridge and have it running, you'll log into that application using exactly the same Epic account that you would use for MetaHumans. Again, we're assuming that the MetaHuman itself has already been created in MetaHuman Creator, so we're not going to do anything else here in Creator per se. Just one note about this is that, we're already getting our very first warning. This MetaHuman uses grooms currently in development only displayed at LOD 0 and LOD 1. All this means is that LOD 0 is the very highest level of detail. LOD 1 is just one step below that. And this is stating that at those two levels, this hair exists as stranded hair grooms. So it responds to physics. All of these strands are actual individual strands of hair. And when this character gets small in the screen, there is no geometry, kind of like a Lego fig hat version of this hair to replace the stranded groom. And as a result, basically, the MetaHuman will go bald when she's smaller in frame, resulting in there being no hair. There are ways of getting around this in Unreal Engine, and we'll cover those in later tutorials. But for now, just know that this message exists, and this is not really a problem, particularly for virtual production. We can just let that go. Since the MetaHuman's created, we're not going to need the MetaHuman Creator, so our final note before closing it is just to know that at this moment, this MetaHuman exists as a still image and a set of parameters. So if we were to go into the edited selected, basically behind the scenes with all of these settings are a set of values. Right now the main values that are in place are the Glenda template plus I changed the hair selection for her head. Every single one of these parameters is a value on a server, but the model doesn't exist yet. It's just the parameters that would generate this model. And we'll see that later on when we get into this process of getting this MetaHuman into Unreal Engine. Now, because many of these steps along the way are going to involve waiting for a good bit of time, I'm going to run a real-world stopwatch here so that you can see when I speed up this video. So you don't have to wait for it yourself watching this video, but you'll see what real-world time is as the waiting process goes by. All right, so we've got our MetaHuman. I can close MetaHuman Creator. Let's leave that. I've already got Unreal Engine installed, so let's get that up and running. So I'll go back to my Epix launcher, and I will start my clock, and we'll launch Unreal Engine 427. So we're going to use this to create a brand new blank project in which to put our MetaHuman. So select a create. I'm going to create. In this case, I'm going to create a film and television for live events. And next. And we'll choose blank. And next. We're not going to use starter content, so no starter content. And I'm going to leave ray tracing disabled. You can enable it or disable it. Just really depends on the capabilities of your machine. I have a standard folder already defined for my Unreal projects, and I'm just going to name this MHDemo and create that project. So now we'll go through the process of creating that project, and most of that is just waiting and watching the messages here. So you'll see the real-time clock going as this goes through its process. That didn't really take too long at all. And so now we have a blank level, and we've got a couple messages here. New plugins are available. We can dismiss that. Project file is out of date. Would you like to update it? Yes, update it. All right, so we've handled those messages. Now we have a project ready to receive Unreal MetaHumans, but to do that, we'll need the access for the Megascans plugin. There's usually a big green button up here for the Megascans plugin. It's not enabled yet. So we'll need to run Bridge in order to install it in this version of Unreal Engine. So I will go ahead, and it looks like Bridge is not running yet. So I'll hit my Windows button and type in the word Bridge. It took a few seconds to get that launched, but it's now up and running. And I am logged in with my Epic account. It's the same account that I used to create the MetaHuman. As a result, just to check, I can go into the MetaHumans section of Quixel Bridge. And this is the presets. These are all the MetaHumans that were created by Epic. And if I go into my MetaHumans, I have my list of custom MetaHumans that I've created on MetaHuman Creator. And here's my Glenda that's ready to be downloaded. There's a green button here to download her. Let's take a look at some of these settings that need to be taken care of here in Bridge. So I'll click on Glenda, and we get a panel here. I could launch the MetaHuman Creator website here if I wanted to, but the main thing I want to do is make sure that my download settings are the way that I want them, and then that my export settings are set up. So I'll click on this little cogwheel to get access to those. Let's start with the download settings. The main thing that's important with MetaHumans is that under models, you choose that by default they should be FBX, and we can just leave that. And MetaHumans, you are usually defaulted to UAsset only, and that's fine if you only intend to use your MetaHumans in Unreal Engine. I also use Maya, and so I selected UAsset plus source assets. So the original source assets of a MetaHuman are actually Maya files. And so I do want those so that if I choose to work with my MetaHuman in Maya, I have those files to work with, and I could ultimately export this MetaHuman over to Maya as well. So that's why I have both of these selected. If you're not a Maya user, you can just choose the UAsset. Okay, so that's my downloaded settings, and then I need to take care of my export settings. So I'll go to that same cog, choose export settings, and Unreal Engine is where I want to export to. I need to select my correct version of Unreal Engine. In this case, I'm using 4.2.7, and then the plugin location. In my case, I have Unreal Engine installed on my C drive, program files, Epic Games, 4.2.7, Engine, and then I point to the plugins folder. This is where the Megascans plugin needs to be installed. So we'll click install, and that's done. Only problem is, even though it's installed, Unreal's still running, and the plugin's not showing. So I just need to restart my project. So I'll close. This will bring up the Epic Launcher. And, oops, sorry about that. I'll go back to my Epic Launcher. I'll go to Library and reopen my MH demo. And this time when this opens up, we should end up seeing our Megascans green plugin button in the top toolbar. Great. So now we're opened and the Megascans plugin appears. Now in our content browser, we really only have just this level and it's empty. But now that we have the plugin installed and Bridge is running and Unreal is running, we're ready to download our MetaHuman and transfer that MetaHuman into Unreal Engine. So let's switch back over to Bridge. And here is the Glenda model. And so I'm just going to go ahead and download her. Now, again, I'll hit the download button and we'll bring up our clock so we can see where we're at. We're about 6 minutes, 20 seconds right now. And you see that we're getting a generating message. So as I mentioned, up on MetaHuman Creator's server, this MetaHuman exists only as a set of parameters. So right now, the actual file assets, the 3D models, the procedural textures, the hair grooms, all the files that define this MetaHuman are being generated. And note that this might run a little bit longer for me than it might for you as a result of the fact that I'm downloading both the U assets as well as the source files. So they're all being generated for me. If you only selected U assets, it should run a little bit faster for you since the Maya files shouldn't need to be generated. So we'll just let that run, and as soon as that's finished, we'll continue it real time. Okay, so we're a good bit over 10 minutes in terms of the generating and downloading process, and downloading is now finished. So we'll just let that wrap up before moving on. I'm going to keep this rolling. I'm just going to set this aside and expect that this will finish up soon here with downloading at 100%. In fact, I'll get rid of my export settings panel here so that we can go back to here. Still indicating that she is downloading. And so this is a glitch that I'm seeing in the current version of Bridge. The download process seems to have stopped, but I still have a download button and she's still indicating download. What I've found is the download was successful. So this may just be a glitch on my computer. It may be a glitch in this version of Bridge. So I am not sure which of those two things it is, but what I found is that I can close Bridge and reopen it, and that will resolve the issue, and Bridge will recognize that the files have been downloaded. So I'm just going to reopen this. And once these images refresh and load in, I'll be able to click on MetaHumans. And then I'll click on My MetaHumans, and sure enough, I've got my happy blue checkbox next to Glenda indicating that she's fully downloaded. So if you run into that same issue, just close and reopen Bridge to refresh this panel so that you can see it. Don't worry about trying to download again. All right, so I have Glenda downloaded, and already I had taken care of my export settings. This indicates that we're going to export to version 4.2.7. That's installed. Default project is not necessary to be populated because Bridge communicates with the running copy of Unreal Engine. So just to double check that, I'll go back to Unreal, and yes, we have that plugin. So we are ready to go for export. So we will go ahead and click on export, and this is going to run really quickly on the bridge side, exporting and exporting successfully. That was almost instant. However, now over on the Unreal Engine side, we're going to get all kinds of flashy windows. And this is the Megascans plugin receiving the information that it has a Unreal Engine MetaHuman to import into the project, and now the plugin is doing the work of bringing over those files and setting them up for Unreal Engine to use. Now this is going to take a good bit of time, so I'm going to bring our real-time clock back. We're also going to see a lot of messages starting to appear, and during the processing phase here, I'm just going to ignore them all and just let them all play out. In particular, there's going to be 3 messages about missing components either to the project or plugins. We're going to let those large panels appear and move around. There'll also be some other messages. There's going to be one dialog box in particular that's going to indicate that there are new files for the project to be imported, and that one we'll go ahead and respond to. There it is. 69 changes to your source content files have been detected. Would you like to import them? So this one message for right now, we'll go ahead and click on import. And this is going to bring in those files, and we're also letting the shaders compile. And we're going to see some messages about texture, body normal maps, chest normal maps, etc. We're just going to let those ride. Basically, you can see that they actually deactivate themselves as time goes by. So we're just going to let all of this run until we get back to just the 3 panels about missing plugins and project settings. So things have settled down to where we just have these 3 panels. So at this point, we definitely want to enable these missing settings and restart the project. We want to be careful to make sure that we do click the enable button for all 3 of these panels before our restart. So I'm going to go ahead and enable this. That's done. I'm going to go. Now I'm getting this message about restarting required. Don't click this until after all 3 of these have been set to enable the missing. And now that all 3 of those have been acknowledged and set to enable, now we can restart with all of the required plugins and settings in place. So restart now. So just after a couple minutes, we've got our restart finished and all of the new shaders have been compiled, and we now have our MetaHuman folder in the project. So we can just verify that our MetaHuman looks good and works properly by double-clicking on this. Inside we'll find a common folder, which is just all of the common files for all MetaHumans. And then here's my Glenda folder, named after the MetaHuman that I imported to the project. Double-click, and you'll see BP Glenda. So BP stands for blueprint, and that is basically a container in Unreal Engine that has facilities for handling all kinds of scripting and multiple meshes and textures. Basically everything that defines this specific MetaHuman is coordinated through this blueprint asset. So we can double click on this to view our MetaHuman, and then it'll also update the preview icon here. So double click. Okay, so it's a few minutes later and the blueprint is open. We can see some of the scripting involved. The nice thing is that now that we've opened this once, we're triggering some shaders to compile, but if we were to open this MetaHuman in the future, after everything has been loaded the first time, it'll go much faster and smoother going forward. So we're just making sure to look at the viewport so we can see this MetaHuman. I'm also going to scroll and get close to her so that she's large enough in screen to have her full hair groom appear. We're going to let all of the shaders compile. And that's it. The compiled shaders are ready to go. We can now see our MetaHuman in the viewport in her blueprint editor. And then this process is done. So here we are about a little over 30 minutes into the entire process, and we have our first MetaHuman in this project. Now, future MetaHumans will take less time to add to this same project because of the fact that the common files are already here and compiled. And also, opening that MetaHuman will take much less time going forward. I can double-click her now, and she pops right open. Everything's fine. Her hair is missing because she's small in the frame. If I get closer to her, there's that level of detail that we mentioned at the beginning, where if she's small in the frame, the hair disappears. If I want, while we're here, we might as well address that. There's a setting for level of detail synchronization here. We can click on that. Left to -1 means that the level of details will automatically refresh depending on how small she is. If we set a specific value here, then it will stay with that. So we're just going to go set this to 0, which is the highest level of detail. And now I believe she will stay at that highest level of detail regardless of how big or small she is in the frame. So that takes care of that. We can compile that change. That's all set. And if we wanted to, we can go ahead and save all of that. And there she is, and we could drag and drop her into the frame. And because everything was already compiled, including her shaders, we don't have to wait for anything to be updated because we set the level of detail. She keeps her hair regardless of how large or small she is in frame. So that is what to expect when you're expecting a MetaHuman. Here's my total real-world runtime for this tutorial. It's just under 40 minutes. And we can stop this at 33 minutes for just the installation process. Hope this helps. Until next time, have fun.